Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I am Kaylee Bateman, the content director at She Can Code, and today we're discussing how to build a career in FinTech. FinTech includes areas such as banking, insuring, and investing, and job roles can vary from business analysts to cybersecurity specialists. I've got Chirine BenZaied, Head of Innovation at Finastra, with me today to share what a career in FinTech can look like, what skills and qualifications are important, and how to establish yourself within the industry. Welcome, Chirine.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Can we kick off with a bit of background about yourself, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I'm Head of Innovation at Finastra. I'm also advisor at Frida Green and associate at Time for the Planet. And I'm a mother of two.
Lovely, lovely. I would say which one of those is the most important role to you? I would say being a mother of two.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're going to talk a little bit today about the FinTech industry.
Mm-hmm.
But what about yourself? How did you get into FinTech? Is that did you take kind of a curvy route in? Did you know you wanted to go straight into FinTech?
Yeah, that's interesting, actually. So I have an engineering background. I've studied biology and agronomy, which is quite different from from the fintech industry. But as I was actually studying these topics, and I've done that at Tech, which is one of the French grandes écoles, I actually had the opportunity to still specialize in computer science. And I knew at the time that I wanted really more to focus on everything economics, finance, and computer science. So parallel to my engineering degree, I've actually done a master's degree in math modeling applied to economics and finance as well. So that's how I've got actually in the space.
Amazing. And so you were quite heavily involved in lots of different STEM disciplines there. Was there something about STEM that was there somebody who inspired you, or teachers that encouraged you, or did that come from home? What was it about STEM subjects?
Yeah, I was actually naturally attracted by everything. Science, particularly math, economics, but also I enjoyed really learning about physics, chemistry, lots of things there. So yeah, definitely interesting topics.
Yeah, we love to hear that on this podcast, how the ladies that we talk to, how they make their way into technology, because we hear so many different routes. And obviously you've found yourself in FinTech. Could you just give us a little bit of an overview of the FinTech industry? In the intro there, I mentioned, banking, insurance. Could you maybe just give like a brief summary of what it is?
Yes, absolutely. So FinTech is where, as a fin and tech, finance and technology, and we can think of it as a vertical, but actually you have lots of things inside that each of them could possibly be its own vertical. So you'd find things like payments, retail banking, everything universal banking, but also things like everything lending, from consumer loans, mortgage loans, to commercial, syndicated, and each of these areas very different from the others. And within FinTech, you'll also find everything capital markets related, both buy side, so everything asset managers, hedge funds, activities, to sell side, which is more on the investment banking, trading, etc. So really lots of different things, and on all of these areas, technology plays a key role. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's so many parts to FinTech as a whole. I'm assuming that's one of the things that makes a career in FinTech so exciting, right? That there are so many areas that you could move to just within that small industry.
Yes, absolutely. I think what's really exciting about FinTech is the opportunity it offers to learn so many things. So, I mentioned my background in engineering and then studying modeling, math, economics, and finance. But then probably most of what I've learned, what I know today, I've learned it during my years in the industry, working. I've learned from my colleagues, from our clients, and it's a definitely exciting space when it comes to the learning opportunities it offers, because as you dig into one of these verticals, you get to learn so many things about market practices, like the technology behind it, also the in some areas the math and the models that are behind it as well. So depending on your appetite and what topics you'd like to dig more into, you can really get to learn lots of things in this space.
Yeah, I'm assuming you really have to keep up on the industry as well, and it must change incredibly fast. So you must have to really stay ahead of the curve if you want to work in it.
Yes, absolutely. And that's also the other really interesting aspect, is that things are changing so fast. And it's a huge opportunity for the market as well. So we saw when maybe starting 10 years ago, we started seeing first the impact of open banking and being open APIs, and then collaboration between different players. So that was the first wave of innovation in the space. And then we saw how data, AI, and machine learning started to transform the industry and to bring a whole set of new capabilities. So it started a while ago, but we're still seeing most recently with ChatGPT and other generative AI innovations, how this can also continue to transform this space. On the other hand, everything around blockchain, digital assets, and crypto as well have brought a whole set of new applications and innovation into the industry. So if we take the example of blockchain and how it can transform like the post-trade processes of capital markets, if instead of issuing bonds as we do traditionally, we leverage blockchain like Ethereum and others to issue those securities, we can achieve real-time settlement, real-time payment. So yeah, a whole set of new capabilities that are enabled by the technology. And probably the most recent wave, and the one I'm most excited about, is everything related to ESG and climate. And again, we see a whole set of new innovations in that space that remind us actually of the importance of finance, the role it has to play to be an enabler to the economy, and an enabler also to the transformation that is ahead of us towards the net zero and all of the climate challenges.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it sounds like there are so many areas that you could go into. I think it sounds quite as well, if you got in and you didn't like one area or you wanted to transition to another, it sounds like there are quite a lot of opportunities available. I think people would only think of the fintech industry as banking and payments, and that's probably it, and that you wouldn't have much opportunity anywhere else. But from what you're saying, it's pretty varied. And quite an exciting place to work. In your experience, do you feel that the fintech industry is supportive of women and diversity? Is that something you've seen, or still have room for improvement?
Short answer, there's definitely still room for improvement.
Yeah.
Fintech is finance and technology, and the combination of these two industries, actually each of them separately suffers from a lack of diversity historically. So the combination of the two sometimes can be not better. If we look at the numbers, actually we see some improvements, but still less than 10% women in leadership of fintechs. And that's even lower in with fintech startups than on established financial institutions and incumbent players. So there is definitely a struggle to attract and retain women in the space. So yeah, definitely room for improvement and change is required. And I think what's positive here is that we talk about it. We're talking about it today. We hear a lot about diversity and the need for bringing more women and a more diverse people to the space. And we also know the levers that we can use to do that. We know, for example, that post-COVID, everything around hybrid and remote working is definitely attractive for women. And there was a recent report from McKinsey, for example, saying that women are 10% more likely to quit a job if it's not if remote or hybrid working is not available. So definitely something that is more women friendly. Also, lots of things, and I think it's important to talk about it. Lots of things around childcare support, having parental leave, not only for women, but for all parents, offering support to women when they return from maternity leave. So having specific programs for that, because we see also women leaving, quitting a job quite often after maternity leave because it's difficult to get back to their job as it was before. So it's important to offer options and opportunities to grow after these kind of life events. And what we see work really well is actually top-down support. So, for example, at Finastra, I personally find it inspiring to see that we have 50% women in the executive leadership team, and it's something that is not. There was a direction put in place, an objective that the team worked toward. It doesn't happen just randomly. We need to be aware that there is a problem and work towards fixing it, and it can be fixed, definitely. So yeah, it's just a matter of leveraging all of these levers to attract, to retain talent, and to help women grow in the space.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, what do you think are some of the things turning women off from coming into the industry? But you just mentioned in there, having so many female leaders within your company, that would be so encouraging for women to see that it comes from the top down, and that example it will trickle down. I think having those, we talk about it a lot on this podcast, having those role models in place where people, they're visible and people can see them. I think that's one of the most valuable things that companies can do, because I think not being able to see someone in a company that you can relate to and looks like you can really turn women off from what could have been a really good career.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, we're taking the example of women here, but the same would apply for other types of diversity that we would be looking to see more and more in the industry.
Yeah, yes. And so for those listening then, what skills and qualifications do you think are important in the fintech industry? If they're thinking about coming in, what skills and qualifications should they be thinking about?
Yeah, so this could be really a wide range of skills, depending on what space people would be interested in. So, like some areas would require more quantitative skills, some others would be more like just being able to learn about the industry. So yeah, it's a really wide range of jobs in there, and a wide range of verticals within the fintech vertical. That it's the skills would be very different. I think what's really important, as we were mentioning, how things are moving so fast in the fintech industry, is overall to be always open to learning new things, to keep being curious, and probably a whole set of soft skills. So yeah, being open to change, being positive, and being agile also, and always willing to learn new things.
Yeah. Do you think, would you say you have to be highly technical, or is that one of those myths? It sounds like a highly technical, area of the tech industry that you would need to be trained in certain qualifications from, university, and you kind of needed to know what you wanted to do at university. Is that true, or have you seen people take, all kinds of routes into fintech?
To be honest, I've seen people taking all types of routes into fintech. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, even though I've started in the capital market space and on a quite technical area of capital markets, like more quantitative financial engineering, most of what I know there, I've learned it during my job. Of course, there were some basics on math and computer science, but yeah, even on very technical jobs, you'd be learning most of it on your day-to-day and reading articles and getting to know market practices, etc. So lots of things you won't learn at school anyway. So actually, and that's an important aspect, because when we look to hire new people, we really focus on their capacity to learn new things versus what they already know or what they've learned at school. We generally just check that they actually got a bit of the basics, but they've got that capacity to go and search for new things and learn new things.
Yes, oh, that's good to hear, because there's always that disconnect, isn't there, between the world of work and when you're at school. And it is a baptism of fire when you get your first job. But when companies are complaining that there's that skills gap and we can't find candidates that suit us, then you're absolutely right. If you're a company that's going out there just looking for somebody that's got that good attitude and is willing to learn, then why not bring them on for that and then train them up in the areas that you need them to be qualified in. I completely agree with that approach. And in terms of hiring people, what can people do to make their CV stand out, do you think, when it comes to fintech?
Yeah, that's a good point. So the CVs is what you get first before getting to meet someone, and beyond like the skills that people have and or their background, their studies, etc. I think what's interesting is, or what would make some people stand out is really the anything they are doing extra work. So like side projects or getting into some hackathons or taking some initiatives, or even things that are not really related to fintech or to work, but just to see that people are actually have that innovation spirit, the entrepreneurial spirit. They're trying things and they are learning outside of the traditional path. So that's definitely interesting, especially when you're starting, you don't have much in your CV. It's good to see already what you're doing in terms of side activities and side projects.
Yeah, that's great advice, because I wanted to ask you next about what experience do you think is necessary, and what can you do to gain some if you don't have any? And we get asked that question a lot during our live events. Somebody always puts that question in: what if I haven't got the experience? What can you, how do you show that? And you giving that advice there, attend some great events, take part in a hackathon, or volunteer somewhere is great experiences to get started, really, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. So hackathons are amazing. We have a lot of experience there. We've been organizing hackathons for a while. And just to share with you maybe a couple of examples there. So one of our hackathon winners is Anita. I'm sure she won't mind me citing her. She's an entrepreneur and she's been moving careers, and she's decided at one point in time to do a hackathon every month. And I found it as a great initiative, really a great way to go and learn new stuff, and also to help you meet different people and maybe find ideas, find projects you'd like to invest further in. So that was really one inspiring example, and Anita did great, really. She participated in several of our hackathons. She won some of them, and she's really outstanding.
This is quite a challenge to take on one a month. Wow.
Yeah, and she did it. She's really impressive. And the other examples we had were, students that would participate in our hackathons. We call them Hack to the Future. So if you go and check fintech.devposter.com, you'd be able to see all of these hackathons and projects that were submitted, etc. And they were open to professionals as well as students. They would like compete to the same category. And sometimes it was so good to see actually some teams of students go and win against some 10, 15, 20 years experience professionals.
Yes.
So yeah, it's really cool, and it's something that you can definitely, and we saw people like put it on their LinkedIn profile and CV, etc. So it's definitely a cool experience and a good achievement to mention. And last example I would add to that is I think 2 years ago we started also a new category for hackathons that was focused on youth. So it was open to the 10 to 18 years old, and it's really cool because it shows that even at younger age you can actually start doing these side projects, exploring innovation and exploring the space. So we're looking at innovations that would be pitched by secondary school students, and some of them were really impressive. I remember last year we had a student from India that actually submitted a project about it was an app built on a blockchain actually, and sort of giving kids incentive to go and do stuff. So giving parents actually the possibility to reward their kids for when they do good at school or when they do things at home, etc. And you would do that via some sort of tokens, and then they can go and spend those tokens. And that was really cool because even though it was not required actually, but the student there, he actually built something, coded something, and submitted it. So it was really inspiring, and lots of other ideas brought and pitched by youth participants in the youth category. So definitely inspiring, and it's a great way for them also to get in touch with some industry professionals, to get to think about how to build an idea, to pitch it, etc. So really inspiring. So you can start very early and you can definitely add these kind of projects to your LinkedIn profile, CV, etc.
Yeah, it's always so interesting to see what people come up with at hackathons. And we run hackathons all year at She Can Code as well. And the ideas sometimes, I think, it's, as you said, when you get students up against people that are a little bit more experienced, it's so interesting to see what they come up with, because it's almost like the students don't see barriers, they don't think about it that way, they just see a problem and that's it. But sometimes the more experienced you get, the more you start to think, oh, actually you start talking yourself out of something and why you can do something. But it's lovely when you see students that just come in and think there's a problem and this is how we're going to solve it. So yeah, hackathons are always such interesting days. So definitely would advise finding some throughout the year to attend. What about in terms of interviewing in FinTech? Do you have any tips for how to stand out in an interview? You've made it through the CV phase, they've spotted your CV and they've kept you, and you've made that first interview. Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, again, I think it's it would be the same skills that you need to show during the interview that would make you really stand out. So capacity to learn versus what you already know. So maybe one very practical advice is don't panic if you're asked a question that you don't know about. What we usually be looking for is, how would you think about it? How would you still go and try to solve the problem, even though you don't have all the information required there? So capacity to go and learn, and and more generally being positive minded. One other general advice, but I think that would work in FinTech and beyond, is, and it's also related to the CV. I think one important thing is being able to talk to anything that is on your CV. And that's the basis, but it's really important. If you put something in your CV, but you're not able to explain or talk about it, that could be really a problem. So make sure that everything you put in the CV is something that you're able to tell a story about and explain what you have done, what you have learned, what were the challenges, what did you learn out of it, and what achievements beyond the day-to-day work, what achievements were you able to make really on that job or on that experience. So really owning your CV and the very and the very details of it is very important.
Yes, could be a bit of a red flag if you're asked something and you're like, could you remind me? Well, on my CV. Seems slightly strange. I loved what you said. I think that's the best advice I've heard for an interview. Don't panic. That is hands down the best advice. Definitely. I think it shows as well that, in an interview, it should be a two-way conversation. I think a lot of people, especially when you're very new and you're a graduate and you're going for your first job interview, it takes a little while for you to realize it's not them just interrogating you. You can ask questions and you would like to know what your day-to-day would look like if you joined the company. I think it takes a little bit of practice, doesn't it, when you're a graduate, to realize that.
Definitely.
Calm down and don't panic. Chirine, am I right in thinking you are a mentor?
So we have a group at Finastra called Women at Finastra, where we support each other. It's a network, and as part of that, I've been a mentor for a couple of my colleagues.
Yeah, and in terms of what you get out of that, what benefits are there to being a mentor? I suppose there are obvious benefits towards your mentees, but what about yourself?
That's a very good question. I really appreciate actually those moments I spent with some of my colleagues, just to reflect with them on what they are doing, what their perspective, and what's next for them. And it's a way for me also to understand what challenges other people might be going through. And sometimes they are very similar to some of the challenges I'm facing myself. So it's really interesting to look at it at someone else and then trying to apply the same things to yourself. So it's definitely a great learning experience as well. And I think of it as a very important thing, because it's important to help each other in a space where we don't see much women in the space. So it's important that we can be supportive towards each other's.
Yes, because I think obviously there are lots of benefits to having a mentor, aren't there? And as you said, just sharing even, not just what you get from it, but what they get from it, and hearing that your experience, and that sometimes if your mentee is feeling a certain way and you think, and just so they can hear, it's not just them, we're all feeling the same way, and we've all experienced whatever it may be. I think even just sharing stories amongst mentors is super beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are almost out of time, and I've got one last question for you. Do you have any final advice for our listeners?
Keep being curious and learning new things. And maybe one last advice is I would encourage everyone to get into, maybe if you were to learn something new, I would encourage checking what's happening with the climate, net zero objectives. What does that mean for each of us? Learning about the science behind it, what it means from a technology standpoint. It's a completely new space. It is, of course, very much connected with FinTech when it comes to green finance, and lots of exciting, really, things happening there. And lots of things. Also room to improvements, lots of things to be done there. But yeah, I'd encourage everyone to go and check what's happening there. It's also very much growing space, so lots of opportunities for people to learn, to get new jobs and to have an impact.
Yep. Wonderful. That is lovely advice to end it on, because we're already out of time. So thank you so much, Chirine, for joining us today. It's been so lovely chatting with you. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
And for everybody listening, as always, thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again next time.